Whoops. Ashley. Are you Ashley Kelly?
My email is Ashley Kelly, but my legal last name is Page.
Paige. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. I don't
Good
want to make the
morning.
wrong person the wrong thing.
Good morning. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I had to call in instead of my computer audio, but it's okay. Sure.
Alrighty. Thanks everybody for joining us today. As a quick reminder, make sure y'all's microphones are muted so that our speaker can have everybody's full attention. This session is entitled The Math Marathon and is being presented by Sterline Caldwell. Sterline Caldwell is the curriculum coordinator for the Masters of Public Health program at Morehouse School of Medicine. He's studying for his PhD in mathematics education at Georgia State University. Sterline is the founder and director of Mathletes at America Corporation, a Georgia-based nonprofit organization with a mission to innovate mathematics education. He received his Bachelor's of Science in Applied Mathematics and Electronics Computer Technology and his Master's of Science in Information Technology from North Carolina A&T State University. Sterline is from Charlotte, North Carolina, and enjoys playing chess and producing hip hop music. If everyone can please now give Mr. Caldwell your full attention.
We can't hear you.
Sterling, you're
Thank
on
you.
mute.
There we go. There we go. Thank you. That was an amazing introduction. I am excited for you all to be here to see this and participate. This will be an interactive presentation, and this is a presentation I want you to use your cell phone. So if you have your cell phone near you, this is going to be a good presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. Okay, so the Math Marathon, this is a cartoon series that was developed by myself, as well as two animators, one being from Jamaica and the other being from Atlanta. This is something that I've worked on and had an idea about for some time. And it dawned upon me to make this happen during a 2011 summer internship where I was trying to develop something to gain the attention of my students. This whole program, this is all inspired off of the HRL framework, as Dr. Muhammad just did a presentation on. And when I took her class, I was able to put the lessons and the pillars of the HRL framework together to inspire me to create this series. Everything from the character design, the character's name, and the cartoon and music itself is all I have input from my students. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this off. I want you all to pay attention to the cartoon that I'm gonna play next, and because we got a little quiz, a test after it. So I am going to.
Leo Satellite.
What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Call Pythagoras up, yeah, I'm calling them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Square them sides up, then I'm adding them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Call Pythagoras up, yeah, we calling them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Square them sides up, then we adding them up. Triangles get three sides, and they all relate. First side of my math, short side, nickname that side A. First thing Pythagoras said, you gotta square that side. Around the corner, 90 degree, nickname that side B. You gotta square B too, then you add them fools. Got the hypotenuse, call that side C squared. You gotta square that root to get the side called C. Why don't you come with me? I'ma teach you mystery. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Call Pythagoras up, yeah, I'm calling them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Square them sides up, then I'm adding them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Call Pythagoras up, yeah, we calling them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Square them sides up, then we adding them up. Cause of Pythagoras, we now can add them up with simple algebra. This ain't no magic, bruh. Square root is our friend. It'll help us in the end. It is because this two, we find the hypotenuse. There are three sides and all. Sometimes they short, some tall. They all are mad at us for calling Pythagoras. I had to square my A, I had to square my B. And when they added up, you know that it gave me C. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Call Pythagoras up, yeah, I'm calling them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Square them sides up, then I'm adding them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Call Pythagoras up, yeah, we calling them up. What you gonna do when you gotta find a hypotenuse? Square them sides up, then we adding them up.
So that was the cartoon. So I'm gonna give you a brief overview, and then we're gonna get into the actual game. So the character, the main character, his name is Matthew. Matthew, he actually received his name from a STEM day event that I did at a local middle school, where I had a contest, and I asked the middle schoolers to drop a name in the contest to name the character. So the character was already developed, but he didn't have a name. So I allowed my students to name him. So they came by and they said his name should be Matthew. And I said, that's clever. So Matthew is the older brother of his younger brother Nasir. And research findings report that immediate family members such as older brothers, uncles, fathers are often the first mathematics teachers of students of African descent. And like myself, my brother was my first teacher in mathematics. He's 3 years older than me. And I always would try to do my brother's homework. So we always had a little contest when we were younger to see who could do the homework fast. And my brother was always amazed that I would catch on so quickly to his. And then after my brother, my dad, my father was the prominent teacher at home. So this cartoon is kind of encompassing all of those many avenues. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to go to polev.com/mathlete and enter and sign up as far as put your nickname in, and we're gonna play a little game from the video that we just watched. And I am going to give me just a second. I'm gonna go to the chat first to see. I want you to comment to let me know when you have entered that information and you have your name in the poll. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of difficulty. Okay, here we go. All right, good. All right, here we go. Okay. Let me switch. Okay. If you're in, all right, I see a couple that say they're in. Okay. All right, let's get started. It's 15 seconds. So where did Matthew begin the mathematics field trip? A, State Farm Arena, B, Egypt, C, J.R. Crickets, D, the Georgia Aquarium. All right. He started off at the State Farm Arena. Let's see who got this correct. 100% got it correct. We're going to see the leaderboard. So we got Jazz. Is Jazz the only one that was able to get in? Man. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next question. We've got 6 people here. So the next question is, how many students does Matthew tutor? If you paid attention in the video, you would count the number of students. It's an empty classroom now. 1, 2, 3, or 4. So there are 4 students in the classroom. Let's see. Oh, we got, okay, so we're getting some different answers now. All right. Let's see who on the leaderboard. Okay, all right. Tie between Jazz and S. Alex. Okay. How do you calculate the hypotenuse of a right triangle? Use the Pythagorean theorem, use midpoint formula, use PEMDAS, or use a measuring tape? Use the Pythagorean theorem. That is correct. So this whole entire cartoon was centered around the Pythagorean theorem, understanding how to calculate the hypotenuse. Okay, all right. We got some more on the board now. All right, let's see who's gonna win this at the end. Okay, the square of a side of a triangle with the length of 3 equals what? 1, 3, 6, or 9? A little trick question. It equals 9. The side of a triangle with 3 equals, the square is 9. So what do we get? 100% correct. All right. Okay, Hunter has switched places in second. Jazz is still top. Then we got S. Alex as third. Okay. And we got some climbers coming up. Okay, next question. The square of a side of a triangle with the length of 4 equals. Four, 2, 20, 16. So the answer is 16. 100% correct. Y'all are great. Okay, so no one has switched positions. Okay, after squaring side A and side B, the next step is to what? Add the squares together, square the root, or divide the squares. And the answer is correct. Add the squares together. Y'all are great. Y'all are all mathematicians. Okay, so Jazz is still top. We got S. Alex is 2 and Hunter's third. Okay. Got a couple more questions. C squared is the sum of the squares of A and B. True or false? The answer is true. Same thing. Y'all are just kicking it. Y'all are doing great. I love it. And what is the root of a square of 25? So asking these questions differently make you think about mathematics differently. What is the root of square 25? And the root is 5. So we got 100% correct on that one. So Jazz, great job. Is in number 1. I don't have any prizes. I wish I did, but we all here today. We all family. We having a good time. So I appreciate everybody in taking part of this. Didn't want to make the questions too hard. Wanted to keep it centered around the lesson. So this is the lesson. So the purpose of this series is to attempt to connect students from the African diaspora to what they have been dispossessed of, and they have been dispossessed of their mathematics brilliance of their ancestors. And dispossession deals with inheritance. So why haven't the mathematics students from the African diaspora inherited the legacy of their ancestors? And that's because it's kind of what we talked about earlier with the presentation of Dr. Muhammad, is through these systemic white supremacy and racism that we only learn about mathematics through a Eurocentric perspective or paradigm. So in this program, like I pay homage to my professors that have taught me everything that I know and challenged me and continue to impact me as a mathematician, so should mathematics education in that aspect. Pythagoras, which the song is named after, Fibonacci, and even Euclid, as many, many more famous mathematicians, first mathematics teachers were African scholars. So it's important to pay homage and connect and to not displace our students, the culture of math, because math is an all-encompassing thing. It tends to be called a colorblind field. However, as I mentioned, through systemic racism, we only get to learn about mathematics through a Eurocentric paradigm. So what is it? What are we going to do? It is in this program. I want the students to synthesize mathematics, and because mathematics is the discovery of the unknown. Before all of these great utensils that we get now, calculators and computer programs, and coding, and all of these things, our ancestors applied math to solve daily problems. So that's what I want our students to do. I want them to take those same concepts, and I can't have them build a literal pyramid, but they can use building blocks, and they can do these same exercises that was done around the world in many sites to learn and connect with mathematics, so they can make these meaningful connections to what they're learning instead of just rote memorization. So these are a couple of tools that I want to use to help the students with their mathematics learning and pursuit. During this COVID-19 pandemic, like many other people, I became a builder. I was at home. I was knocking walls down. I was doing renovation projects. I was using plumbs and compasses and all of these different utensils. And I said to myself that this is all geometry, this is all mathematics, and this is a way that you can learn. So the last time that I believe that, or I know that they offered wood shop class in school was when my father was talking about he was in junior high school. Now, junior high school don't exist in many cities anymore. So that was some time ago, and there was hazards with wood shop class. So in those times, students could even explore these applications. So removing the hazards of wood shop class and having to be trained on all of the safety measures, this is a way that students could have that same experience and learn how to connect with math through these many tools, which will allow them to see and understand the connections with everyday life. So a plumb is something that they would use to make sure that the walls are perpendicular to the ground. Then you got the compass and the square and all of these different things that allows the students to understand angles and their relative position. So these are concepts that they learn, they do worksheets on, but they really never get any actual practice on them. So as I mentioned, the population that is elevated by this is the students of African descent. And that encompasses the entire African diaspora when it comes to continental, to Caribbean, to America, to South America, to wherever. Because we got to give our students images, positive images of themselves. We got to let our students know that they are brilliant in mathematics. We got to let students know that wherever they are, wherever they see things, no matter where they are, it's measurements and calculations, and you got to show them who they are in a different lens. So instead of making those comparisons that we tend to see in research between a black and white binary, and always comparing about standardized tests, this is a program about celebration. This is a program that's about helping them understand and nurture their own mathematics identity. So as a part of those learning pursuits that Dr. Muhammad talked about earlier, this program is centered around those ideals. So we have identity. So one of the first things that the students have done is I tell them, hey, construct a building using shapes. I want this to represent whatever your culture is. And it's no right or wrong answer. I just want you to express your culture using abstract art or building some type of edifice. And you explain to me why this means something to you. And you explain to me the math behind what you're doing. And it's no right or wrong answer. And when the students do it, they just light up, and because they get to express themselves, they get to express their own identity. And mathematics is something that we don't really tend to use to express identity, not like the other liberal arts like writing and literature, poetry. You get to tend to use your style and creativity and individuality in those fields. Mathematics is definitely something that needs to be in the nurturing of identity. So we talked a great deal about skills and the skill development, how we all emphasize skills and testing and practicing, and all these skills that tends to be the number one thing that schools use to measure the proficiency of students' mathematic ability. So when Dr. Muhammad's class, we was charged with doing a project and using and looking at how your program could address the skills, because I mean, at the end of the day, we do have standards and we do have to address those standards. So this program develops students from elementary to secondary education because it touches on so many of those Georgia standards. They'll learn how to describe the relative position of shapes. For instance, if we take the pyramids in Egypt, we have some are small, some are big, some are above, some are beside, some are to the left and below each other. They can correctly name the shapes. When you look at those pyramids and you look at the top of it, well, you might see some triangles. But when you look at the overall base, I mean, you might see a square. So we got different shapes that they, and this is elementary school, that they'll first start identify. Okay, that's a triangle. Okay, that's a square. Okay, that's above. That's below. I want you to talk to me about what you see and what you learn. So then we go to say sixth grade, and we got the right triangles, and we could take the length and the measure of one side of the pyramid to the other side, and we can calculate the right triangles, and we can calculate using the Pythagorean theorem the distance across, and we can really understand the concept of what their ancestors did to create these wonders of the world. So in eighth grade, that's when we have Pythagorean theorem, and then the proof of the Pythagorean theorem, and you take it a little bit further in the eighth grade to the number 7. We got size, we got length, we got real world applications of the Pythagorean theorem, and then like the distance between 2 points, so in the coordinate plane. So I want you in this picture, it's a juxtaposition of the Great Pyramids as well as the constellation of Orion's Belt, which is an important concept because the students only learn mathematics within a box. There was a time where they would learn, our students would learn in the ancient times that the skies, the heavens, and the stars was the grid in which we used for geometry and calculation. So there's one of my primary source texts is a book by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima called Blacks in Science, Ancient and Modern. And it covers the tradition of mathematics in its development from astronomy to mathematics to medicine to science. So we want to explore these things. We want to explore the overall development of mathematics. So then how do we get to the next learning pursuit? Well, intellect, right? So intellect is, in the HRL framework, is about learning and gaining knowledge, overall knowledge about multiple disciplines. So as I talked about before, you got this astronomy where we rarely introduce children in elementary school to astronomy. But all of this is developed from my interactions with my students. Hey, what do you do? Well, I got a telescope and I look at the stars at night. You got a telescope? Yeah, I got a telescope. I got the little glow-in-the-dark stars I put on my roof, and I look at it, and I try to recreate what I see. So they do these things outside of school. But how are we connected to what they're doing in school, and how are we connected to them learning mathematics? Well, we got to become more creative. We got to mix it together and make this great, wonderful thing. So then, like I said, there was a time in our history where we learned math at nighttime, because that's the only time you can see stars. That's the only time you can make those connections. And then, so then students will read about the Dogon of Mali and Timbuktu and the universities there, and how they used astronomy to calculate one of the most accurate calendars that existed thousands of years ago, as well as learn about the Yoruba system of numbers and base 10 and how mathematics took place around the world. And then in Europe, learn how in 711 AD, when the Moors were able to go into Europe when they was in the Dark Ages because of the Enlightenment period had ended, they brought with them the Hindu numerals that allowed them to calculate mathematics much more efficient than using their standard Roman numerals at the time. So this overall history of mathematics is them, and we gotta empower the students to understand these things. We got to empower the students to understand the history of math so you can then continue to go forward in mathematics. We had a question earlier about criticality. So criticality is like how do you become woke? Well, it's around you every day. You just got to look for it, the crack. So, and this is just one extension of this lesson, but staying within the context of the pyramids and Egypt and mathematics and criticality and HRL framework, I had ran across the article. Well, actually, one of my students in the 8th grade, they were talking to me about a news. I think it was not a documentary, but it was like an inside edition, and it was covering about the lost and stolen treasures. And came back to our tutoring session, and she was saying that, "Hey, Mr. Caldwell, did you see that story on Inside Edition? I know we were just doing some lessons about calculating the pyramids, and I didn't know what was inside of them. So we started to talk about this is what's inside of them. And through the years, you know, these artifacts, they have been sent around the world, and other countries benefit from the displaying of these artifacts, and the actual country and the people in the country don't get to benefit from it. What are your thoughts about that? Let me just talk. It's the criticality aspect of understanding what is going on. So I want you to write a reflection. I want you to think about how this impacts you. How do 1 million artifacts in 40 museums, how does that translate? How does that translate mathematically? How does that translate ethically? How can we become better humans, more humanistic, and learn from each other without necessarily capitalizing on each other? So as I mentioned, this program, it develops students from elementary school through high school, through multiple sites. And as I mentioned, it goes from talking about size and relative position, and even the development from, we talk about Mesoamerica with the pyramids of the moon, to sharing knowledge. We're going to discuss the culture that was shared, the mathematic development that was shared between people, so that we can know that we're one human family, that we all share, we all use mathematics to impact the human kind, to impact ourselves and make ourselves and our families and community better. So I'm getting to the end of this, but sticking with my theme of music, one of my favorite rappers, his name is Nas, and he says Egypt was the place that Alexander the Great went. He was shocked at the mountains with black faces. Shout out to those to impose what basically still goes on today. You see, if the truth is told, the youth can grow. They learn to survive until they gain control. Read more, learn more, change the globe. They read more, they'll learn more, they'll change the globe. If they get that intellect and that intellectualism, they'll start seeing themselves as who they truly are and the likes of their ancestors. They'll connect themselves with this mathematics. Their identity will be nurtured. They will find their own space in a space where there's not many of them that look like them in the mathematics field. So they'll find that sense of family. So these are some of the scholars that have impacted me greatly throughout my research and understanding the development of mathematics, as well as the importance of understanding the tenets and the history of the African diaspora. So I just always pay homage to those who do so much work that came before me, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do what I do, and I wouldn't be able to impact who I'm going to impact, and they wouldn't continue to pass on the legacy. So that is the end of my presentation, and if you have any questions, I am open.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say that this was an absolutely amazing presentation. I definitely loved seeing your work. I could see it being on like PBS and or some type of curriculum for students. I love the fact that you centered the cartoon around areas in Atlanta, and then you pay homage back to the pyramids. And then I think the way that you integrated the people, especially at the end when you had that slide about all the people who have impacted you intellectually, I think that that was a well thought out presentation, and you did an amazing job.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Thank you so much. And Schoolhouse Rock was one of my biggest, it impacted me. I think his name is Bob DeRoe. Bob DeRoe, in an interview years ago, he said when he first was making Schoolhouse Rock, back in those days in the 70s, they would only make those type of songs for vinyl. So they originally didn't create Schoolhouse Rock to have a cartoon. They originally made Schoolhouse Rock to be released on vinyl. Bob DeRoe said that if you can make a song that can stick with you, everything else will take care of itself. So when I listened to Bob DeRoe in that, and I anticipated making just a song, just a song. I was like, I just need to make a song because that's all I can afford to do, because animation costs like $1,000 a minute of animation. So I'm like, I just need to make a song and then everything else will take care of itself. And it did. So thank you so much again, Jasmine.
I echo Jasmine's sentiments as well. You've been extremely formidable in your presentation, and I thought about my history learning from others in this arena as well. And you basically laid the foundation for teaching students who are not only English language learners, but students in special education as well. Thank you. Tremendous, tremendous. Awesome.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate this, Sterling. So it's just exciting to see your work. What struck me too, for those of us who are not as strong in mathematics, it creates a way to make that full connection. So those of us who were interested in history and reading literature and watching the news, you help bring this full circle so that student begins, and I'm that student, begins to make that specific skill development connection. And I cannot tell you how many, I would say days, but weeks and months of being lost in a class. And this way I can think about the stars tonight. I can think about touring with friends at the State Farm Arena. That means something to me if I pass it to go to school. And I just really appreciate that richness.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Minna.
I'll add one more thing from a content perspective. I really liked how because a lot of times when people think about the Pythagorean theorem, they just think about the triangle aspect, and they don't think about the fact that when you're squaring a number, it's literally like the area of a square. And so you integrating that piece into the cartoon, but then you also carefully reinforcing that through your poll everywhere and the visuals that you attached, to some of the questions so that people can literally see, hey, this is a square. Here's like, what's 3 squared? What's this? And attaching it to that triangle, I think also reinforces that concept in a subtle way. And so thank you for that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Y'all are making my day. I really appreciate all of your support and just the comments. Like, I really do. I will drop the link. It is on YouTube. So you ever got somebody, a little cousin or student that you want to send this to, and I'm gonna drop it right now. That they can always access it. And I'm building workbooks and worksheets around this lesson. So I really appreciate you all. I do so much.
So ultimately, Sterling, how do you see this advancing and being more accessible?
Sure. So ultimately, I actually have 5 songs created. I have a song that teaches how to go from fractions to decimals to percents. I got a song that teaches the other aspects of geometry, such as rectangular prisms and cubes or spheres. And then I got another song that teaches how to add fractions with unlike denominators. Actually, that's 4 songs then. And I wanted to develop all of those songs, into cartoons, but like I ran into, I didn't know that animation was so expensive. So ultimately, I do want it to go to PBS. Ultimately, I do want to become one of the main content creators of mathematics education. I am working with charter schools right now, and I'm developing curriculum for them to be able to teach their students this content from elementary school up to the 8th grade. A couple of charter schools that I work with is from K to 8. So that's what I ultimately want to do. I want to create curriculum. I want to be a content developer. I never want my music side to go away. I'm a musician that parades around as a mathematician. I love both of them together, and I just want to always stay young in the mind as far as listening to what my students are telling me, and just always meet them on the level to where they can understand these concepts. So that's my ultimate goal, Minna.
We got about 2 minutes left. If anybody else has any more questions.
Well, I always have a question. You can count on me to have one. I'm thinking too about the communities around Atlanta that in adaptability into other cultures. Are you looking at partnering with some others in terms of what other cultures might bring?
Yes, definitely. And that's why it's so important. So like as I develop the team, like I'm trying to bring in it's so many different aspects just from the conversations and just the literature that I consume about global mathematics. Like the same concept with Pythagorean theorem could be applied to the Great Wall of China, because it uses, I mean, this is thousands, 2,500 years ago, they, building this Great Wall of China, and it existed using the same theorem. So I want to pay homage, like I said, this is a human thing. Like, we all family, we share cultures and traditions, and we all need to encompass each other, because that was the only way that we survived back then. And if we don't continue what we did in the past, we're gonna do the same thing that got us in this position today of hating, not embracing. I want to embrace. I want to, like I said, develop. When I talk to my students from, it was Mesoamerica, we talking about Middle America, Mexico, we talk about South America, we talk about the islands. When I talk to them, it's the same thing. We've all shared cultures. Like, just the development of the Pyramid of the Moon is because of this cross-continental, transcontinental communication that we always have had with each other. We are not new to each other. We've been all dealing with each other for thousands of years. So, and I want my students to get that. I want my Hispanic students to understand your ancestors was great. Y'all great. You know what y'all built. They still said that, what's going on. Like, y'all are great. Like, you're a great mathematician. We all great together. So that's my overarching mission.
Alrighty, thank you, Sterling, again. It's time for a lunch break, everybody. Y'all don't forget, at 1 o'clock, the next concurrent session starts. So I'm sure we'll see everybody then. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, sir.
Okay, so I'm gonna guess that if I just hit pause recording, it should stop, right?
I hope so. I think so. I think if we go away, it'll stop.
Okay, I'm gonna hit stop and